This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If your fashion wish list lives rent-free in your brain, you need to be on Poshmark. With Poshmark, you're shopping millions of listings from thousands of closets, each curated by someone with their own style. Vintage finds, designer pieces, and everyday staples all in one place. Search for your favorites or let the discovery come to you. Poshmark makes it easy to find what you actually want to wear at prices that feel like a quiet win. Download the Poshmark app today and use code PODCAST10 when you sign up to get $10 off your first purchase.
This may sound evil, asocial, or even sinister. And in some cases, it will be. Our intent is not to promote evil or the abuse of power, but rather to promote awareness so that they cannot be used against you. How you choose to use these laws in your own life is completely up to you. We hope you use this knowledge responsibly to better your life, and remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Spider-Man. Today we cover Law 13 of Robert Greene's national bestseller, The 48 Laws of Power. Law 13 is, when asking for help, appeal to a person's self-interest, never their mercy or gratitude. The judgment for this law is if you need to turn to an ally for help, do not bother to remind them about your past assistance and good deeds. He will find a way to ignore you. Instead, uncover something in your request or in your alliance to him that will benefit him and emphasize it out of proportion. He will respond enthusiastically if he sees something he'll gain for himself. Very, very smart words, John. I think I've been using this since I was a little kid.
Yeah, in fact, my grandfather had a plaque on his desk that it's so old it said it was an old Indian quote, but in today's politically correct environment, I think they would say this is a Native American quote. Never judge a man until you have walked a mile in his moccasins. And I think I think that applies here. The key to power is empathy.
Right, because you have to understand what they want, right?
Yeah. And, we always think of our own wants and needs, but I think really what this chapter is saying is when you look for a mutual self-interest, look for a win-win situation, that's the winning approach.
I agree. This is even in sales, and I constantly hear people talking about solving people's problems in how you discover what kind of products to make or how best to sell them. You try to find a solution to whatever their biggest problem is, and that's basically finding the same thing, finding what it is that floats their boat.
Yeah, and let's just face it, your problem is not necessarily their problem, and vice versa. So it's especially in sales is where that's concerned. You're looking, as a salesperson, you're looking to solve somebody's problem.
I used this probably 2 years ago. I built a supercomputer, right? And I really wanted to have like a super spruced up computer that I could do some video editing on, because my old computer just sucked and it would always crash, and it was just very frustrating. But I knew my wife, who controlled the bank at the time, I had to get approval for a loan so I could go out and buy a new computer. So, my pitch was, hey, I'll wait till Black Friday, because our old computer, I think, had died and she needed to get work done. So I made sure that I was like, look, I'll build a computer that will not crash on you, that when you can dial into work and you connect, it will work instead of, having to reboot it 5 times to do your work and spend, 30 minutes on something that should have took you only 5 minutes. So I put it in her self-interest that say, this will be good for you or good for both of us, but, and I'll save money by building it myself and buy the parts on Black Friday, so they'll be half price.
And she bought into it, right?
Yeah. But now every time we try to print something, I have to reboot the computer.
Yeah, technology, you just have to love it. It's great when it works, but more oftentimes than not, it doesn't work at the right time or when you need it to. You know, your little story there really shows me how this law is an art form. And we are all working on this art, whether it's getting our wives to kind of sign off on a new computer, or perhaps it's at work when you're trying to get something from your boss that you need. It's always good to know who you're talking to, understand their point of view, put yourself in their shoes, so that you can offer something that is valuable to them. I was thinking about how we can bring this into our own life, and number one, we need to understand who we're dealing with and what they might want or what they need. And don't confuse your needs with theirs. So in our day-to-day life, I think it's important to study people and work to improve your ability to empathize with somebody, or walk in their shoes.
Right. All right. I'm going to touch on the
observance of the law.
The observance of the law out of the book. Every time they always give lessons from history, which are very thorough and full of a lot of dates and complicated names to say. However, it's always very interesting. Yeah, we butcher them, but this one story is about the Peloponnesian War and the island of Corcyra and the Greek state of Corinth. I guess they stood on the brink of war, and they were looking to, I guess the big boy in town was Athens, and whoever could team up with Athens would basically win the war. And Coria, I have a hard time saying some of the names. They went to Athens.
I just have a blast listening to you pronouncing those words. Reminds me of when we were in Mexico.
Just don't get me to say pianist.
You say it?
I said it correctly there. When I was in school, I went to a radio school a long time ago, and one of the girls could not say it. She kept on saying, it sounded like pianist, but it wasn't, and it was very comical. Anyways, so these guys are on the brink of war. Basically, they both petition Athens for help. Athens being the big dog on the block. So the first one was Corcyra, the little island.
Sure it was, Tom.
The island. So they spoke first, and they said, "Hey, look, I think if we take our navy, which happens to be second only to Athens' own navy, and combined it with Athens, we're going to have the best navy around. Even could rival Sparta, who was Athens', big rival of the time, right? So they were like giving them something that they could use and something that would interest them. So but they were not like buddies. They were not allies in the past. They were just, saying, hey, this is what we can do for you. Will you help us? All right. So they went off on their merry way. Athens then met with Corinth, and they came in and said, hey, look, we're your ally. We're your friend. We've been there to support you. We've helped you in the past. If you don't help us, how's it going to look to all your other allies? It's the right thing to do. So, I think you should side with us and do the right thing. So they left. And so Athens, they discussed, the leaders in Athens discussed what they should do, and almost unanimously voted to go with a Curren. I can't say it. The first guys that had a cool navy. Corcyra, I guess would be it, right? I think I'm going to go with Corcyra. It's good enough.
I'm not even going to venture in that direction. It's just fun to listen to you butcher these names.
Hey man, I'm not a historian. I'm just giving you the gist of what's in this book, and that I think is Corcyra. That's I'm sticking to it. Anyways, they decided to go with them because they're like, you're right. If we have a navy that can rival Sparta, that would be good for us. So that's what they did. They didn't go with their friend and ally. They went with someone that could help them achieve a goal that they wanted.
Yeah. Bringing up people's histories and making it seem as though there is an obligation because you were friendly with someone in the past or did something for somebody in the past, using that as an argument for gaining help from them, really does not work in your favor. The past is in the past, and people are more thinking of the future rather than the past. So you could see why Athens sided with, what was that, Tommy?
Corcyra. Hey, I'm going. I think it's Corcyra.
I'm sure we'll get some emails or some voicemails correcting us on this.
You idiots! You are butchering that. Well, there's also Aesop had a fable which applies to this, and that was also in the sidebar of the book. If you don't mind, I'll read that real quick.
Go ahead.
It's the peasant and the apple tree. So the peasant in his garden, he had this apple tree, and it bore no fruit. All it did was, grasshoppers and sparrows would sit on it every day. So he resolved to cut it down. Taking his axe in hand, he made a bold strike at its roots. The grasshoppers and sparrows, pissed off that their house is being attacked, entreated him not to cut down the tree and sheltered them, but to spare it. Said, "Hey, spare it, and we'll sing to you and lighten your labors." He paid no attention. He was like, "Yeah, I don't care if they sing to me. They're going to chirp anyways." So he proceeded to cut it down. The third blow with his axe, he reached the hollow of the tree. Inside, he found a hive full of honey. Having tasted the honeycomb, he threw down his axe, and looking at the tree as sacred, took great care of it. Self-interest alone moves some men. That's from Aesop himself. 6th century BC. That's a long freaking time ago, man.
Yeah, these laws have been around for a very long time, and I think Robert Greene does a great job of, scouring the history and pronouncing these names correctly much better than we do.
When you think about it, that's 6 years before the time of Christ, and that God, that's it's ancient.
Yeah,
it's ancient to ancient, but they were so wise.
And there's still, this teaches us, I think, the importance of history. And so we don't repeat ourselves. And there's a lot that we can learn from history because history does repeat itself. As I think about these days and times, there's a lot of different buzzwords being thrown out there, especially in my corporate job. You hear a lot of buzzwords. I'm not going to bore you with that, but we hear in the news talk about mercy and justice and charity, but when we beg for help, we're actually demonstrating the other person's superiority. And those who are superior, whose interests are they looking after? Well, they're looking after their own. That's how they got to be superior, is they're looking out after their own interests.
It's funny. I was telling my son Hunter today, we were taking a long drive, and we were talking about, there's this guy that's supposed to be like the world's smartest man. I don't know if you ever heard of this, John, but he was a bartender. And he had seen, I think it was in Forbes or Popular Science, they had like this IQ test, and it was a real IQ test, and you would fill it out and send it in, and they would grade it and let you know how well you did. Well, this guy got like off the charts, ratings, like the highest they'd ever seen. They thought it was fake, but they were like, there's no way this guy could be faking it. So they tracked him down, and he happened to be a bartender. Or bouncer in a bar. I don't even think it was a bartender. I think it was a bouncer. And they interviewed him, and they were like, well, if you're like the smartest man in the world, how could you, the second guy was a physicist, that second highest score, and, was had all these awards and been to MIT and so forth. But this guy all he was doing was bouncing. So they interviewed him. He had like a super, super bad childhood. Like his stepfather beat him. I think he dropped out of high school early because, people accused him of cheating because he never studied yet. He was acing everything. I think he took a couple college classes and found them like trivial. So he just dropped out. Unfortunately, the guy's demeanor is very arrogant because in the interview that he was basically saying that he thought dumb people should be, just eliminated. Like he's speaking mass genocide. And it's the arrogance. I was telling my son, I was like, we're talking about, if you could be super smart, would you choose to be that? Because eventually you would feel you'd almost become arrogant because you would see everyone else beneath you. You wouldn't be able to have a conversation with someone because you would be so above their level. You wouldn't be able to watch TV because you'd be like, so predictable, it's stupid, So it's kind of funny. That's the comment that you made reminded me of that.
Yeah, I have my moments of arrogance. That's for sure. Ask any of my friends. You tell me all the time. But I remember that story a little bit. I mean, it sounds familiar to me, but I think it speaks worlds to what we're talking about in this law, and that power is best gained through working with others and understanding where another person's position, and not necessarily looking down on them, because you're not going to gain anything from that attitude. There was I guess it's my turn to butcher a name, but in this man lived from 1645 to 1696. Jean de la Bruyere. He said, "The shortest and best way to make your fortune is to let people see clearly that is in their best interests that promote yours." Or no, I'm sorry, even I butchered the quote. Let people see clearly that it is in their best interest to promote yours.
Jean de la Bruyere.
Reminds me back. This has been killing me, Tom. Back when we were in high school, we were all in band, and we went to Mexico with part of the band. I remember Tom ordering water at one of the meals, and he's pointing at the glass and he's saying, "Agua, agua." I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? You mean agua?" These people don't know what you're talking about, Tom. Agua, agua. He was like a caveman. He just needed the club.
And I work in Hispanic radio right now, and I still don't speak Spanish. Imagine that. And they probably still think the same thing when I point to a microphone. Broke. I
think you're making tons of progress, though. Everyone can hear you say the transgression of the law.
It's all right. I've become the token gringo, because whenever it's funny, because the production guy will always get me when he needs, like, he'll have like like when they do car commercials and they have the disclaimer at the end. Yes. It's read in English and it's read real fast. They speed it up, but he has me read those things for him. Anytime they need a gringo voice, I've become the resident go-to guy.
You sound like Alvin the Chipmunk.
Yep. You remember from that trip, real quick, I thought you were going to mention, though, we went, me and John shared a room with these two other guys, and they give you Perrier water, right? Like water so you don't get the Montezuma's revenge. And so we had the bright idea of, we weren't very friendly with these guys, and I guess we weren't very nice kids, John, but we drank their water and filled it back up with tap water and put the lids back on. And sure enough, it had its effect. You were sitting in a room one day, right? And one of the guys ran in and jumped straight in the shower. Yeah. And he went.
Yeah, about 2 days later, we were in Acapulco, and there was a frantic knock at the door. It was crazy, and I nearly got pushed. I got pushed to the back of the room when that door came flying open, and here comes our roommate and runs straight for the bathroom and locks the door, and we just hear him in the back. He sounds like he's being murdered.
And then he spent like a half hour in the shower, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is later on in the evening, I was out on the balcony and I look down and I see this little Ziploc bag, and I go, "Hey, what is this?" And I pick it up, and it's crappy drawers, underwear.
He said he showered because it was quicker than wiping.
Do you remember what I did with the bag? There was some guys. There was two guys, up above us. I heard them whistling and talking and stuff like that, and I conveniently swung it and chucked it up onto their balcony. And all of a sudden you hear, coño!
Our listeners are going to think, man, those guys are terrible.
We
were. But I know for certain that karma came back and bit me in the ass with that one, because after I got back from Mexico, that's when I got the Montezuma's revenge. So maybe somebody switched my water, Tom.
Oh, no, I got it too. I got it while we were still there, I think. I know there's no way around it. That thing's going to find you in some stray ice cube or, somewhere, some place, or maybe we went to a restaurant and that's what they were filling it up with tap water. Who knows?
They were probably laughing at us, but I guess
probably when I asked for the agua. They're like, yeah, give them the good stuff.
They'll teach you how to speak Spanish. Anyhow, I think I heard the horse neighing. Because we're beating the dead horse. Well, right. Anyhow, I think we're at the end of this. Just as we end this episode, remember, it's not all about you, but it is. Learn how to empathize and learn what makes people tick before you ask them for help, and try to.
There's basically people are selfish, unfortunately, but it is people are selfish, and it's one way to in order to get what you want, you got to help others get what they want.
Yep, that's absolutely true. So thank you all. I'd just like to say thank you all for listening to us on iTunes and Stitcher, leaving a rating for us, as well as any comments that you have. We see the number of downloads going up, the views on YouTube, hits on our website, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I just want to thank you all for listening in.
Absolutely, and we're in the new and noteworthy right now, and we're slowly climbing. So any more reviews you can give us is much appreciated. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to A Swift Kick in the Ass podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we ask you to please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, head over to aswiftkickintheass.com to get a free copy of the Simple Spending Tool.